My name is Samantha Reed, and I am a 19-year-old girl living in the beautiful but very rainy city of Eugene, Oregon, where I am currently a freshman at the University of Oregon. And let me tell you that life as a college student is not always the glamorous adventure that you see in the movies, especially when you are stuck in a tiny dorm room with someone who has the personality of a sandpaper block. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and I was always the quiet girl who focused on her grades and loved biology, and dreamed of one day working in a laboratory where everything was clean and organized, and followed the rules of science and logic, because science never lies and it never ignores your personal space or steals your favorite sweater without asking. When I got my acceptance letter to the university, I was over the moon with excitement, because I thought this was my big chance to reinvent myself and meet people who shared my passion for learning and my respect for others. But then I met my roommate Brianna, who was the human equivalent of a loud car alarm going off at 3 o'clock in the morning for no reason at all. Brianna was also 19, but she acted like she was the queen of the world because back in her high school in Portland, she was the head cheerleader and the prom queen, and apparently the most popular human being to ever walk the face of the earth, according to her own constant stories. From the very first day she moved in, she took over 3/4 of the room with her massive suitcases and her collection of high-heeled shoes that she never actually wore because we live in Eugene, and it rains every single day, which makes wearing heels a death wish on the slippery sidewalks. Brianna would spend hours looking at herself in the mirror and talking loudly on her speakerphone to her friends back home about how much she missed being the center of attention, and how the people at this university just did not understand her star power yet. I tried to be nice, and I tried to share my snacks, and I tried to listen to her boring stories about the parties she used to throw in her parents' basement, where she supposedly invited the entire senior class. But the more I tried to be a good roommate, the more she treated me like I was just a background character in the movie of her life. The real problem started about a month into the first semester, when Brianna decided that our small dorm room, which was barely big enough for 2 twin-sized beds and 2 desks, was the perfect place to bring back every guy she met at the local frat houses. Our beds were set up as bunks with me on the bottom bunk and her on the top bunk, because she insisted that she needed the top so she could feel like she was in a penthouse or some other nonsense like that. And let me tell you that having a bunk bed is only fun when you are 10 years old, and having a sleepover with your best friend, not when you are a tired college student trying to study for a chemistry exam. Brianna started bringing home this guy named Justin, who was just as arrogant as she was, and they would come stumbling into the room late at night smelling like cheap perfume and bad decisions, and they would climb up to the top bunk while I was right there underneath them. It was the most uncomfortable and disrespectful thing I have ever experienced because the entire bed frame would shake and creak, and I could hear every single whisper and giggle and sound they made, while I was trying to press my face into my pillow and pretend I was anywhere else in the world. I would eventually get so frustrated and grossed out that I would have to grab my robe and my laptop and go sit in the cold hallway or the 24-hour study lounge until Justin finally left and Brianna fell asleep. This happened 3 or 4 times every single week, and no matter how many times I asked her to please be respectful and maybe go to his place, or at least wait, until I was not in the room, she would just roll her eyes and tell me to stop being such a prude, and that I was just jealous because I did not have a boyfriend. My life became a cycle of sleep deprivation and anger as I watched her walk around like she owned the place, while I was basically a ghost in my own home, and I knew I had to do something to change the situation before I completely lost my mind. I decided to try the mature route first by going to our resident assistant, whose name was Marcus, and explaining the situation with as much detail as I could without turning bright red from embarrassment. Marcus was a nice enough guy, but he was a junior who was mostly interested in playing video games and avoiding any kind of real conflict, so he just told me that he would talk to Brianna and that we should try to fill out a roommate contract to establish some ground rules. We sat down to do the contract, and I wrote down that guests should be out by 11 o'clock on school nights, and that there should be no overnight visitors without prior approval, but Brianna just laughed and signed it with a big loopy heart, and then completely ignored every single word on that paper the very next night. Things went from bad to worse when Brianna started eating my food, because she was too lazy to walk to the dining hall, and she would leave her dirty gym clothes on my desk. And once she even used my expensive biology textbook as a coaster for her sugary iced coffee, which left a giant brown ring on the cover. I felt like I was shrinking every day, and my grades were starting to slip, because I could not concentrate on my studies when I was constantly worrying about what kind of mess I would find when I got back to my room. The breaking point came when I had a huge midterm exam in my organic chemistry class, which is the hardest class for any freshman, and I had stayed up late studying in the library, and I just wanted to get 6 hours of solid sleep before the test. I got back to the room at midnight, and there they were again, shaking the bunk bed and acting like I did not even exist. And when I asked them to please stop, for just one night Brianna leaned over the edge of the bunk and told me that if I did not like it, I should just move out and go live in the library since I loved it so much. I spent that night crying in the communal bathroom stalls, and that was the moment when my sadness turned into a cold and very sharp desire for revenge, because I realized that being nice and being mature was never going to work with someone like Brianna. I knew that she had a very important date coming up on Friday night with a guy named Tyler, who was a senior and a captain on the club soccer team. And she had been talking about this date for weeks, because he was actually going to take her to a real fancy restaurant downtown instead of just hanging out in a dorm room. She was obsessed with making a good impression on him because she thought he was her ticket into the elite social circles of the university, and she had even bought a new white dress that cost more than my entire month's allowance. I knew that Brianna had a massive weakness for sweets, especially double-stuffed Oreo cookies, and she would often sneak into my stash of snacks when she thought I was not looking, or when she was feeling hungry before a night out. I went to the local drugstore, and I bought a pack of those snack-sized Oreo containers that only have about 8 or 10 cookies in them. And I also bought a box of maximum strength chocolate-flavored X-Lax, which is a very powerful laxative used for people who are having a lot of trouble going to the bathroom. I went back to my room when I knew she was at her afternoon classes, and I carefully took out 4 of the cookies from the middle of the pack, and I used a small knife to scrape out the white cream filling. And then I melted down the chocolate laxative squares and mixed them with a little bit of the cream before putting them back inside the cookies. I made sure the cookies looked perfectly normal, and I placed them at the bottom of the container so that anyone eating them would have to go through a few safe cookies first before they reached the medicine. On Friday afternoon, I went to the student lounge area, where I knew Brianna would be hanging out with her friends before she went back to get ready for her big date, and I sat down on the sofa across from her and opened my little pack of Oreos. I started eating the first 2 safe cookies, very slowly, making sure she saw how much I was enjoying them, and I could see her eyes following the cookies as I lifted them to my mouth, because I knew she had skipped lunch to make sure she fit perfectly into her tight white dress. After I finished the 3rd cookie, I looked at her and put on my best fake smile and said, "Hey Brianna, do you want the rest of these cookies? Because I am feeling kind of full and I do not want them to go to waste." Her face lit up like a Christmas tree, and she reached out and snatched the container from my hand before I could even finish my sentence, and she told me that she was absolutely starving because she had only eaten a salad all day, and she needed something to hold her over until her late dinner at 7 o'clock. I watched with a hidden sense of satisfaction as she scarfed down the remaining cookies one after another, including every single one of the special cookies I had prepared for her, and she even licked the crumbs off her fingers like a greedy child. She thanked me in that fake, high-pitched voice she used when she wanted something, and then she hurried back to our room to start her 3-hour-long transformation process of hair and makeup and perfume. I went for a long walk around the campus and breathed in the fresh pine, scented air of Oregon, and I felt a sense of peace that I had not felt in months, because I knew that the wheels of justice were already turning inside her digestive system. I met up with my friend Sarah, who was the only person I told about my plan, and we went to the campus coffee shop to do our homework and wait for the news of the night to unfold. Around 9 o'clock that night, I was back in the dorm room finishing up a lab report when the door flew open and Brianna came bursting and looking like she had just survived a natural disaster or a war zone. Her expensive white dress had a small smudge of dirt on the hem, and her perfectly curled hair was frizzy from the humidity, and her face was a pale shade of green that matched the school colors, but in a much more sickly way. She did not even look at me as she ran straight for her bag to grab some pajamas, and then bolted down the hallway to the communal bathrooms, and she did not come back for nearly 45 minutes. When she finally returned, she crawled into the bottom bunk, which was my bed, because she was too weak to climb up to her own, and she started sobbing and telling me about the most embarrassing night of her entire life. She said that they were right in the middle of their appetizers at the fancy restaurant when her stomach started making sounds like a growling bear, and she had to run to the restroom before the main course even arrived. She spent almost the entire dinner sitting in a tiny bathroom stall, while the guy she liked was sitting alone at the table wondering where she had gone. And then she had to ask him to drive her home early because she could not stop having cramps and urgent trips to the toilet. To make matters worse, she said that on the drive home they got stuck in a little bit of traffic, and she had to beg him to pull over at a gas station so she could run inside, and she was pretty sure he would never call her again because he looked so confused and disgusted by the whole situation. I sat there on the edge of the chair and nodded my head with fake sympathy while I bit the inside of my cheek so hard to keep from bursting out into a fit of hysterical laughter, because I could perfectly imagine her fancy date being ruined by the very thing she had been doing to me for months. She told me she thought she had food poisoning from something at the dining hall or maybe a bad piece of lettuce, and she kept saying how unfair it was that this happened on her big night, but I just told her that sometimes life has a way of working out in strange ways. She was so sick that she stayed in bed for the entire weekend, and she was so embarrassed that she stopped bringing guys back to the room for a long time because she was afraid of having another accident or feeling sick again in front of people. The dynamic in our room shifted almost overnight because she realized that she was not invincible, and she started being a little more quiet and a little more respectful of the fact that I was a human being with my own needs and my own schedule. Eventually, she decided that she wanted to move into a sorority house with her other friends who were just as loud and self-centered as she was, and I was more than happy to help her pack her bags and see her walk out the door for the last time. My new roommate is a girl named Emily who is an architecture major, and she is very quiet, and she always asks before she borrows anything, and we have a very clear understanding about guests and personal space. I still think about that night whenever I see a package of Oreo cookies in the grocery store, and I have a little secret smile to myself, knowing that a few little chocolate sandwiches were all it took to get my life back on track and teach a lesson to someone who really needed to learn some humility. I never told her what I did, and I never will, because the best part of revenge is knowing that you won out and the other person does not even know how you did it. And now, I can finally sleep in my own bed in peace, without the sound of a creaking bunk bed or the smell of arrogance filling the air. Eugene is still rainy, and my biology classes are still hard, but my dorm room is finally the sanctuary I wanted it to be, and I have learned that while science is great for understanding the world, sometimes a little bit of creativity is what you really need to solve a problem that is standing in your way. I learned that you do not have to be the loudest person in the room to have the most power, and that being kind is important, but standing up for yourself is even more important when someone is trying to walk all over you. I am now finishing my freshman year with high grades and a great group of friends, and whenever I see Brianna walking across the quad with her new sorority sisters, I just wave and think about how sweet victory can taste, especially when it is disguised as a double-stuffed cookie with a very special secret ingredient. It is funny how one small action can change everything, and how a 19-year-old girl from a small town could find her voice and her strength in the middle of a big university in Oregon through a simple plan and a box of snacks. I am looking forward to my sophomore year and living in an apartment off campus where I will have my very own room and my very own bed, and I will never have to worry about a bunk bed shaking ever again. But I will always keep a box of Oreos in my pantry, just in case I ever need to remind myself of the time I took charge of my own happiness. The end of that chapter of my life was just the beginning of me becoming a stronger and more confident person who knows that respect is something that must be earned and maintained. and I am proud of the way I handled the situation, even if it was a little bit devious. Because in the world of college roommates, you either have to be the one who gets stepped on or the one who steps up and takes action. My parents always told me that college would teach me a lot of things about life, and they were right. But I do not think they expected me to learn about the chemical properties of laxatives and the social politics of the dormitory system in such a hands-on way. I am grateful for the experience, though, because it made me realize that I can handle anything that comes my way, and that I have the intelligence to outsmart anyone who tries to treat me like I am less than they are. As I sit here writing this, I am looking out the window at the green trees and the gray sky of Eugene, and I feel very lucky to be here, and to have learned these lessons early on, because life is full of people like Brianna, but now I know exactly how to handle them without even raising my voice or losing my cool. The quiet girl who loved biology is still here, but she has a little bit more fire in her soul and a little bit more mischief in her heart, and that is a version of Samantha Reed that I am very happy to be. I hope that whoever moves into that dorm room next has a better experience than I did. But if they find themselves in a situation with an arrogant roommate who does not understand the meaning of the word respect, I hope they find their own way to stand up for themselves, and maybe they will even think of me and the power of a well-timed cookie. College is about more than just what you find in books, and I am a living proof of that fact as I move forward into my future with a smile on my face and a very peaceful night of sleep ahead of me. I am finally in a place where I feel comfortable and happy, and that is all I ever really wanted when I first packed my bags and moved away from home to start this journey. The rain in Oregon does not seem so bad anymore, and the sounds of the campus are like a beautiful song, because I am finally the one in control of my own story and my own space, and that is the greatest revenge of all. I have spent a lot of time thinking about that night, and I do not feel guilty at all, because sometimes a little bit of chaos is necessary to bring back the order, and I would do it all over again if I had to. It taught me that I have a limit, and that it is okay to reach that limit and fight back when someone is pushing you too far, and it taught me that the best way to deal with a bully is to find their weakness and use it against them in a way they will never forget. Brianna might have been the most popular girl in high school, but I am the one who graduated from the School of Hard Knocks with honors and a very clean record. I am Samantha Reed, and I am a survivor of the worst roommate in history, and I am ready for whatever the world has to offer me next, as long as it does not involve a top bunk and a girl who thinks she owns the world. I will always remember the look on her face when she walked back into that room, and the sound of the bathroom door slamming, because that was the sound of my freedom being restored and my dignity being returned to me. It was a long road to get here, but it was worth every single step and every single Oreo cookie I had to sacrifice to get my peace of mind back. I am happy and I am focused, and I am finally living the life I dreamed of in this rainy, beautiful city that I now call home. My journey through freshman year was a wild ride, but I came out on the other side stronger and smarter, and with a very good story to tell my friends when we are sitting around the campfire in the summer. Life is good and revenge is sweet, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. I look back on that 19-year-old girl who was so afraid to speak up, and I wish I could tell her that it was all going to be okay and that she was going to find a way to win. I wish I could tell her that the rain would stop eventually and the sun would come out and she would be sleeping in her own bed without a single worry in the world. But she had to figure it out for herself, and I am glad she did, because it made me who I am today. I am a biology major and a researcher and a girl who knows her worth, and I will never let anyone make me feel small again. The story of the cookies and the laxatives is a part of my history now, and it is a part that I will always cherish as the moment I decided to be the hero of my own life. I am looking at the clock, and it is time for me to go to my lab and start my work for the day, and I am doing it with a light heart and a clear mind and a very full stomach from a breakfast that I did not have to share with anyone. The world is big and full of possibilities, and I am ready to explore every single one of them with the confidence of someone who knows how to handle a challenge and how to turn a bad situation into a victory. I am Samantha Reed, and this was the story of how I got my revenge and found my way in the world. If you ever find yourself in a dorm room with a roommate who does not care about you, just remember that you have the power to change things, and sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective ones. Stay strong and stay smart, and never let anyone take away your peace of mind, because you deserve to be happy and you deserve to be respected in your own home. I am signing off now from the beautiful city of Eugene, and I hope that your story has as happy of an ending as mine did. Goodbye and good luck to everyone out there who is just trying to make it through their first year of college, because it is a tough world, but you are tougher than you think, and you have all the tools you need to succeed right inside of you. Just remember to keep your snacks safe and your heart strong, and everything else will fall into place eventually. I am going to go enjoy the rest of my day and the rest of my life, and I will always have a little bit of a laugh when I think about the girl in the white dress and the cookies that changed everything for both of us in ways we never expected. It is a crazy world, but it is our world, and we have to make the best of it one day at a time and one cookie at a time. I am finally at peace, and it feels wonderful. My journey continues, and I am excited to see where it leads me next. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gave you a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of a laugh, because we all need that sometimes, especially when life gets a little bit messy and a little bit complicated. I am Samantha Reed, and I am doing just fine. Actually, I am doing more than fine, I am doing great, and that is the best feeling in the entire world. The rain is falling outside, but I am warm and safe and happy inside, and that is all that matters. I have my books and my dreams and my quiet room, and I am ready for the future. Life in Eugene, Oregon is pretty good after all. I am going to go now and live my life to the fullest, and I hope you do the same. Take care of yourself and remember to always stand up for what is right, even if you have to be a little bit sneaky to do it. It is your life, and you are the only one who can decide how it is going to go. Make it a good one. Make it a story worth telling. And most importantly, make sure you are the one who gets to have the last laugh in the end, just like I did. I am happy, and I am free, and I am finally me. The cookies are gone, but the memory will last a lifetime, and that is a very beautiful thing indeed. Goodbye for now, and I wish you all the best in your own adventures and your own battles. You can win them all if you just believe in yourself and your ability to find a solution to any problem that comes your way. I am living proof of that, and I am so glad I got to share my story with you today. It has been a long time coming, and I feel a lot better now that it is out there in the world for others to hear and maybe learn from. I am Samantha Reed, and I am a winner. And that is a fact that science can definitely prove. I am heading out to face the world now with a big smile and a lot of energy. Have a great day and a great life. You deserve it just as much as I do. And remember to always watch out for those double stuffed Oreos, because you never know what kind of surprise might be waiting inside of them if you're not being a good person. Just kidding, or maybe I am not. Either way, stay safe and be kind to your roommates, because you never know what kind of secret skills they might have. I am going now for real this time. Take care and stay wonderful. The end of my story is just the beginning of yours. Go out there and make it a masterpiece. I know you can do it. Goodbye from Eugene.